Today we're going to be talking about what we do and how to write and prepare ministry when a school opens its doors and invites us in, and how we can create a piece of ministry to deliver for them. Well, welcome back to the schools template. This episode is called Delivery, and in the last episode we talked about how to approach schools and how to get yourself invited to do ministry in schools. I'm going to make this as practical as possible, so I'm going to walk you through our tried and tested template that we've been using for over 30 years across 6 continents. But before we get into the template, let me just take a second to note, I believe God deserves our very best, and I also believe that the students deserve our best as well. And so everything that we do, we want to do with an attitude of excellence. You know, every team that I've worked with, I've banned the term "it will do," because it will do will not do. Everything that we do, we want to do with an attitude of excellence. And I highlight that it's an attitude because excellence isn't a benchmark that we're aiming for. It's an attitude, it's a heart posture of choosing to do the best with what we have in our hands. You know, many of us will have different budgets and different resources. We have different skill sets. And so attitude of excellence is about doing the best with what we have in our hands. So here are some of the 3 areas that I think make ministry excellent, and that is fun. Just right off the bat, I want to start out by saying fun is important. You know, I don't think dry and dull ministry is excellent. Excellent ministry is fun, it's vibrant, and it's engaging. We also want to make things simple but not shallow. Excellent ministry is simple, it takes deep revelations and makes them easy to understand, easy to access, and keeps things simple but not shallow. And thirdly, excellent ministry should be multi-layered. What I mean by multi-layered is there should be layers of dynamics and layers of different communication forms that really help engage students and keep things moving. Okay, so getting into the template, we frame our template around 3 A's, and those are attention, application, and appeal. And I'm going to unpack that, I'm going to get into that. But before we do, let me just note that we use a modular format to flesh out, to put flesh on the bones, if you like, of those 3 A's. And what I mean by a modular format is that we use bite-sized modules to kind of build out the ministry. And those modules can be anything from games to videos, maybe skits, object lessons, all those kinds of things that we use to kind of build up a multi-layer of communication that helps our message come across. And so let's get into that. Let's start to build a lesson and some ministry together. So let's start preparing a piece of ministry. First up, before we get into the first A, the first thing is to add an overarching A, and this is going to make sure that we stay on track as we build out the rest of the template, and that is to clearly define our aim. So if you've been asked to teach on a specific topic or a theme, this is the section where it's helpful to outline exactly what you want your audience to learn. In some cases, of course, you may not be given a specific topic or theme, and you may be invited to prepare something that ties in with maybe a national theme. For example, in the UK, I know November used to be anti-bullying month, so you might like to research any relevant national themes like that you could write some ministry for and offer to schools. Similarly, if you are given a total blank canvas, I can't encourage you enough to invite God to speak to you and give you direction on what to share. But regardless of whether you've been given a theme by a school, or you're tying in with a national theme, or writing around something that God has put on your heart, starting here by outlining the aim will help you fill a cohesive lesson. So let's use the anti-bullying theme as an example, and here's how I would set out my aim. Aim, anti-bullying. The tongue has the power of life or death. We can make the world a better place by choosing to speak life. Often when you're given a theme, it can be very broad. For example, anti-bullying is a huge theme. It spans everything from trauma to social skills, and it would be impossible to cover every aspect of that theme, and indeed inappropriate, because in many cases we're not counsellors, so we don't want to necessarily go down some of the avenues that we could go down. But it's important for us to narrow down what we want to cover, and I'd encourage you, the best place to start with that is to ask, what does the Bible have to say about the topic? And don't worry if your country is one where quoting the Bible is problematic or controversial. Don't worry, because outlining a biblical basis here doesn't mean that you have to quote directly from the Bible throughout the class, but it does provide you with a clear biblical direction and foundation to unpack the theme. And so my biblical basis for this is from Proverbs 18 verses 20 to 21, and that is, "From the fruit of the mouth a person's stomach is filled, with the harvest of their lips they are satisfied. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit." So Havrim is a great place to start our prep. So before we really get into writing the main body of the lesson or the piece of ministry, we want to make sure that we get some depth to our teaching, and Havrim is a great way to explore the passage and create a strong foundation for our lesson. It doesn't have to be a super long exercise. I would recommend around 10 minutes per level, and that should provide you with a good understanding to build on. So once we've done that, it's time to start building out the main body of our content. But before we do, we always introduce the team and who we have with us. So for example, in my case it would be like, "Hi, I'm Mark, I'm from Manchester in England, and with me is JD, he's from Sydney, Australia." And we'd kind of introduce the rest of the team. We always also use a disclaimer. The disclaimer that I use reads something like this: "It's great to be with you today, and we really appreciate the invitation from your school. As guests, we'd like to start by saying that everything we unpack today is from our own personal points of view, and we may not directly represent or reflect the opinions or standpoints of your school." This just gives the teachers a little breathing space and a bit of a buffer between us and the school. So let's get started with the first part of our ministry, and that is the attention. This is the part to not only introduce our theme, but really win the students over and engage them right from the start. Like I said earlier, we use a modular format, so depending on how much time we have for the overall class, we might build in 2 or 3 attention-grabbing modules here. The types of things that we might use for these modules are games, activities, dramas, skits, object lessons, impactful videos, personal stories, discussion groups, and you can probably think of other things. But working on the basis that perhaps we've been given a 45-minute class, I'm going to add a game and an object lesson in this section. So I'm going to start with the game, "Will it flush or won't it flush?" And I'm going to add notes under the game in case whoever is leading this section is off sick or unable to make it to class one day, so the rest of the team will know what the game involves and how to play it. The first of the notes will be to outline the aim of this game. In this case, that will be to set up an introduction of the theme to be explained in the following object lesson. And the instructions for the game will be as follows. Show pre-recorded video of first object lesson thrown into the toilet bowl. Ask students to vote, will it flush or won't it flush? After students have voted, play pre-recorded video of object being flushed. The students who've guessed correctly win and advance to the next round. For the next round, show the next video. Repeat for as many rounds as you have time for, or until you have a single winner. I'm also going to add another note here, just to note that it's important to use a disclaimer here, just to say don't try this at home or at school. Don't want any students blocking the restrooms or getting us into trouble at home. Next, I'm going to add an object lesson module. In this case, I'm going to call this module the box. And again, I'll outline this module underneath with notes starting with the aim, introduce the theme that the tongue has the power of life or death. And then I'm going to note the following instructions underneath. Before class, pack a box with a Ziploc bag of ice and place an ox tongue or whatever may be available from a local butcher on the ice. In class, explain to the students that we've brought the most powerful thing in the world with us in the box. Invite volunteers who are curious enough to come and see what it is and have some fun with their reactions. Ask one of the volunteers to explain what it is to the class, and if they're not sure, feel free to explain it yourself. Ask the question, why might the tongue be the most powerful thing in the world? And this is a bit of a fishhook question we want to try and tease in the theme of what we're talking about here. And we're going to listen to some of their answers, and then as we're wrapping this object lesson up, we're going to explain the words that we speak with our tongue have the power of life or death. What we say to each other matters. You might not realise, but just like some of those objects did not flush, the things that we have said to each other stick around in our minds. That can be a good thing if we say encouraging things to each other, but it can also be a very sad thing if we say discouraging things to each other. So we're just tying the game and the object lesson together there. Now we're going to move into the application section, which is where we unpack how the main message of our content can be applied in our lives. And for the first module of this section, I'm going to use a video to reinforce the message that we're unpacking. So I'm going to add a couple of notes to make sure that anyone can understand and introduce it. Like for the other modules, I'll outline the aim first and follow it with some very simple instructions. And the video is a short video from a news channel of a student science project that demonstrated that plants who were encouraged thrived, and plants who were discouraged, who were bullied, actually wilted and withered and died. Next up, for the next module, I'm going to add a personal story, and we're going to outline this with the same format. So it'll start with an aim to help students begin to think about how they can make their world a better place through encouragement. Here are the instructions. The personal story will unpack a time when words hurt us, and something that we read that has made us realise that we're more than the labels that someone has spoken over us. And we really want to use this as a fishhook to tease the question about what we've read. So we might not totally directly reference what we read in this section. We want to kind of create a bit of a fishhook and opportunity for students to ask us so that we can come back to that. And then we're going to tie it together with how we made an intentional decision to always be an encouragement to others so that we build others up, just like what we read built us up. And then we're also going to note here that we want to pause for questions to allow students to ask about what we read. This is a great opportunity to talk about our faith, because when students ask us, we are in most cases able to share things about our faith more than we can maybe directly from the front of class. So if students ask us, it's a great opportunity to then unpack that the book we read, the thing that encouraged us to be an encouragement, was a passage of scripture from the Bible. For instance, in my case, I might talk about the psalm that David wrote, which says, "I praise you because I'm fearfully and wonderfully made," and how that made me realize that I'm not just whatever someone says about me, but that actually I am fearfully and wonderfully made, and how that changed my outlook on life and how I want to be an encouragement to others. So the next module we're going to add is some discussion groups and some group feedback, which will outline as follows. The aim of these is to give the students further opportunity to ask questions and really think about what encouragement looks like. So the instructions are going to be that we split the class between 4 team members. Each team member will use the following questions to lead a discussion. What kind of things get said that are discouraging? What kind of things can we say that are encouraging? What kind of person do we want to be? An encouragement or a discouragement? And we're going to give each group a large sheet of paper to provide the students with the opportunity to write down their thoughts. And that's going to then move into a group feedback time. The aim of this is going to be to get students sharing ideas and learning from each other. And we're going to ask the group to bring their piece of paper to the front and share their feedback with the whole class. The final part of the process is to bring the message into land, which we do with our appeal section. This is where we move into modules that offer a call to action and invite students to respond. And we outline them in the same way as the previous modules. So I'm going to start by closing out with an activity, and I'm going to outline that with the following instructions. Activity, encouragement wall. This is going to aim to provide students with an opportunity to put what we've learned into action. So we're going to ask students to think of something encouraging and write it on a post-it note or a sticky note, whatever you call it, and come and stick it on the wall. They can write more than one if they like. When everyone has stuck something on the wall, we're going to invite students to come and choose someone else's encouragement to stick in their folder and keep to encourage them over the next few weeks and remind them of this class and remind them to be an encouragement to everyone around them. Next, I'm going to drive our appeal home by inviting students to accept a challenge from us, and I'm going to outline that in the following way. This is an encouragement challenge. The aim of it is to challenge students to be a force of encouragement beyond this class. We're going to invite students to participate in our encouragement challenge over the next week. The challenge is simple, to intentionally encourage 3 people each day and keep it up for the next 7 days. And we're going to invite them, if they want to go the extra mile, to see how many days they can keep going and build up an encouragement streak. If they would like to participate, we're going to invite them to come and sign their name on our giant cardboard E, which stands for encouragers. And finally, we're going to end with the last module of this section, the attraction. And this is to invite students to participate in our academy. And so we're going to have one of the team members get up and say something along the lines of, it brings us to an end today. We do have a little time left, so we'll be happy to answer any more questions that you may have. But before that, if you would like to be equipped more to make a positive difference in the world around, we'd love to invite you to be part of our academy gathering every week on Wednesday lunchtimes in room 201. We'll all be there. There will be more fun and games and experiences to help you join with us, making our pocket of the world a better place for everyone. So hopefully we'll see you there. In the meantime, does anyone have any more questions? And we'll open up the last few minutes of the class for more questions. So that has been a little bit of a whistle-stop tour of how we build a piece of ministry and how we use the 3A framework to build that out. And hopefully it will be really useful for you as you create and prepare in the future. I mentioned in a number of the sections how we try and bait questions. We use fish hooks to try and get the students to ask us about our faith. And we're going to look at that a little bit more in depth in the next episode. We're going to look at how Jesus ministered to those around him and how he set up conversations and discussions that made opportunities for talking and sharing his message that the kingdom is near. So we'll unpack that a little bit more and explore that together in the next episode.
Hey guys, thank you so much for watching. In the description below, there is a free workshop guide for this episode. And while you're here, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel.